Are you in relapse? Has food again become your master? Are you once again using food as a mood-altering drug? How did it happen? How did you get here? There's lots of reasons. It's a cunning and baffling disease. Maybe you thought it was simply a willpower issue rather than a disease. Maybe you didn't work the steps. Maybe you didn't work all the steps, or perhaps didn't go deep enough in the steps. Some of us work the program and gain the freedom, and then forget in the hustle of a busy life that freedom isn't free. There are things to do every day if we want to hold on to the freedom, because the disease is only arrested, not cured. Arresting the disease requires major changes in our thinking. Relapse may mean we simply haven't changed enough. It's not your fault you have a disease that makes your body react differently to food than a normal eater. That's the definition of a disease, something that causes some system in your body to not function properly. Once we have this disease, we have it for life. We'll never be able to deal with food the way normal eaters do. But thousands of us have arrested the disease by taking the actions laid out in the OA program. Unfortunately, it remains arrested only so long as we continue to take the actions. You relapsed because the disease at some point proved itself stronger than the actions you were taking to keep it arrested. Let's review how the disease works, perhaps some things you didn't fully understand or chose not to believe. We have a disease, the thing that allows normal eaters to stop when they've had enough or stop after one cookie or some other trigger food, doesn't work in our bodies. Something inside us is different. The something has a mental and physical component. The mental is the obsession. An obsession is a mental preoccupation with an irrational idea. In our case, the self-destructive preoccupation to eat that overpowers all other ideas. The obsession overpowers our best judgment and resolutions and crowds out the memories of the pain food has caused us. We give in and pick up the first bite. The compulsion, another word for craving, is the physical. It's what happens after we pick up the first bite. It can be immediate, like a drink is to an alcoholic, or it can be slow, depending on the food. It can be overwhelming or subtle, but it's there. The compulsion is an irresistible impulse to have more, to eat the rest of the cake or cookies or whatever. While the obsession was mental, the compulsion is closer to a physiological response. The mind is no longer in control. Willpower is useless. We cannot stop ourselves. Take a look at how these definitions fit in the addiction cycle described in the Doctor's Opinion chapter of the Big Book. It begins with feelings: restless, irritable, discontent, almost anything. Because we have this disease, our thoughts turn to food. The obsession begins. This morning we swore we wouldn't eat the cake or whatever, but now the obsession overpowers that resolution. We convince ourselves of the lie that it will be fine. We'll just have one piece, and so we have the first piece. But that piece activates something inside us that wants more. That's the compulsion, an irresistible impulse that starts when we take the first bite. The key word is irresistible. We cannot stop ourselves. Many of us go on and it turns into a binge. But eventually we stop. Now comes the remorse and guilt. How could we have done that? We resolved we would not. So we make more resolutions and promises to ourselves that we won't do it again. And we may not, for a while. Then the feelings come, and the whole cycle begins again. We get trapped in this vicious cycle unless something can intervene, something bigger and stronger than our willpower. That's how the disease of food addiction works. Now let's talk about you breaking out of relapse. Things won't change unless you take action. Someone has said that recovery is the byproduct of accumulated actions. You have the power to take these actions. You are powerless over the disease, not over the footwork. The first order of business is to get totally honest with yourself about the problem and with the food. Here's 7 actions to help you do that and lay the foundation for your new abstinence. 1. Go to the newcomers page in OA.org and review the 15 questions as you did when you were a newcomer. This can refresh your memory about what brought you to OA in the first place. 2. Accept in your heart that your eating is out of control. No matter how many resolutions you make, you're unable to sustain control with your own willpower. 3. Accept that the reason you can't stop is that you have a disease. It's not your fault. Something in you causes your body and mind to react differently to food than normal eaters. But there is a solution. 4. Now it's time to put a concrete plan in place. You need to clearly identify which foods activate the compulsion. Start by making a list of everything you eat and drink and divide it into 3 columns. Column A foods, sometimes called the alcoholic foods, are your trigger foods. The foods that seem to subtly or not so subtly activate your compulsion. Foods you know in your heart of hearts that are problems. Foods you usually eat too much of. Foods that soothe your feelings. For many of us, this column is full of sweet, processed, starchy, salty, or fatty foods. Column B foods are foods that may not be, but sometimes might be, a problem. Column C foods are foods that clearly are not a problem for you. Foods you can take or leave. For many of us, this column is full of vegetables and some fruits. 5. Work with your healthcare professional or a sponsor to set up an honest food plan that excludes all your trigger foods, your column A foods. If you don't have a sponsor yet, do your honest best. Remember, when in doubt, leave it out, at least for now. 6. You'll need to eat amounts that will eventually get you to a healthy body weight. Your healthcare professional can help with that, or OA's pamphlet Dignity of Choice has examples of food plans and amounts that some OAers have found successful. Your sponsor will be able to share his or her experience. And 7, you need structure in your eating behavior. Many of us, but not all, find that 3 meals a day works best. Others eat smaller meals more frequently. Others may have 3 meals as the anchor with a small snack somewhere in between. It's not the number, but the plan and structure that's important. Okay, you now have your food strategy defined. You know clearly what you eat and what you don't eat, how much you eat and when you will eat, what, where, when, and how much. This is your anchor. Decide that you will do whatever it takes to follow this plan. You will not eat your trigger foods no matter what. Now let's talk about what you need to do to get the power to follow the plan you developed. It's ultimately the steps that bring recovery. But at this critical breakout point, power to follow your plan of eating may come from utilizing the tools of OA in various ways. The tools and other actions can be interventions in the addiction cycle that keep you from taking that first bite. The list of suggestions we're about to make may sound overwhelming, but they are doable. Remember, it will take action to break you free, and extraordinary challenges sometimes require extraordinary efforts. And nothing is forever. Think about doing these things one day at a time for 30 days. Suggestions 1 and 2. Write down your daily plan of eating and contact your sponsor every day to commit your plan, and report on the previous day's food. If you don't have a regular sponsor, find a temporary sponsor. If you truly can't find a regular sponsor or temporary sponsor, find a buddy in the program and help each other. Do not use lack of a sponsor as an excuse. That's the disease talking. 3. Make an additional phone call to another member. Of course you won't want to. Do it anyway. If you don't know what to say, I'm making my OA calls. How are you? Calls are hard because every time you pick up the phone, you're admitting you cannot do it alone. 4. Do your very best to get to a meeting every day for 30 days. Face-to-face is best, but go to phone meetings if you can't get to a face-to-face. There is power in the meetings. 5. Read the daily readings in For Today and Voices of Recovery every morning, as well as a page from the OA 12 and 12 or from the Big Book. Another thing very helpful to many of us is reading the 9 affirmations every day from the Just for Today card. 6. Write something every morning on how the subjects covered in the 2 daily readings apply to your life, or write on the questions in the For Today and Voices of Recovery workbooks. 7. Also, try writing a gratitude list each day. At least 5 things. There is always something to be thankful for. 8. Say the Serenity Prayer every morning, especially focusing on the things that are bothering you, but in fact you cannot change. Many of us also say or read the third step prayer. 9. Do service at meetings. Find something you can do to help. It doesn't have to be big. Help set up or put away chairs, anything. 10. OA's Think First card, or the pamphlet Before You Take That First Bite, are great to carry with you, as well as phone numbers. Read and or call when you're thinking about that first bite. These 10 actions will work. If you did all this before and it worked, do it again. Those were the suggested mandatories for 30 days. Here's a few mental shifts that may help you. 1. Accept that not taking the first bite has to be as important to you as not taking the first drink is for an alcoholic. Those of us with this disease will never be able to deal with food as a normal eater does. 2. Restructure your priorities. Make arresting your disease your number one priority and do whatever it takes. 3. Avoid persons, places, or things that are not good for you for right now. 4. Stop blaming others. You are responsible for what goes in your mouth. 5. Stop isolating. Open yourself back up to the OA world and ask for help. 6. Focus on today. For now, let go of regretting the past and worrying about the future. Get in the now. Focus on your number one priority. 7. A quiet time every morning for reading, writing, prayer, and meditation brings the spiritual strength to help you make right choices. It will make a difference in your day. Make time for it. And 8. Use the slogans to deal with some of the feelings, especially one day at a time, first things first, easy does it, live and let live, let go and let God, and how important is it, really? A word about slips. Slips, though not inevitable, happen. You have a cunning and baffling disease. Slips are not failures. They are learning experiences on your way to recovery. Discuss it with your sponsor immediately. If you don't have a sponsor, tell another member. Admitting a slip immediately clears the way to resume your plan of eating. Don't listen to the disease when it tells you, well, you failed, you might as well keep eating. Don't do it. Admit the slip, learn from it, and climb back on the horse right now, not tomorrow. A slip does not have to grow into a relapse. An emotional slip, for example, a return to a bad attitude such as blaming or playing victim, always precedes a physical slip. Slips don't just happen. They are a function of our emotional and spiritual condition. The compulsive bite is the last thing in the chain. You can do this. You've been here before. You may have done it before. Now get busy. Now, not tomorrow. Go look at the 15 questions. Make your 3-column list of foods. Get to a meeting today, face-to-face or phone. Remember, God's not going to do things for you that you need to do for yourself. Get moving. You only have to do it one day at a time. Do it for 30 days and see what happens. See you at a meeting.